first grade teachers. The purpose of this video is to provide an overview of the standards, intended pacing, and sample instructional strategies for Unit 1A. In this portion of the video, we are going to review the AKS and Indicators of Achievement, or IOAs, for Unit 1A. The AKS is the overarching knowledge and skills that students are expected to master. The IOAs are the learning objectives that allow students to demonstrate mastery of the AKS. Throughout the year, you may notice that the AKS and IOAs may not be taught in their entirety the first time they appear on the instructional calendar. Some AKS and IOAs will appear multiple times throughout the year. However, for Unit 1A, you will teach the entire AKS and all of the IOAs. In Chapter 2 of the video, we will look to see how the AKS and IOAs in this unit are paced out in detail. This unit has one AKS. Under the AKS, you will find the Indicators of Achievement, or IOAs. You will also see that we have provided you with the state coding at the end of the IOAs, so that if you are looking up resources on the Georgia DOE website, you are able to find the IOA that is related to the GCPS IOA. When learning AKS 1, students are building on their understanding of the patterns and number sequence established in kindergarten to extend the count sequence to 120. This standard focuses on reading and writing numerical values to 120 and numerical reasoning about the patterns of the count sequence to count forward and backward from any number less than 120. Students will also compare numerical values to 100. The IOAs go into further detail about the expectations for this standard. In IOA 1A, you see that students will be counting forward and backward by ones and tens, starting at any number. Students should also have the opportunity to read and write numerals and represent a number of objects with a written numeral. For IOA 1B, students will reason about the place value structure to make sense of the idea that the 2 digits in 2-digit numbers represent the amount of tens and ones. Finally, IOA 1C will require students to use their understanding of place value from 1B to compare and order the values of numbers up to 100. They will use concrete models, drawings, words, and the greater than, less than, and equal to symbols. In this portion of the video, we will look at the pacing guide to see how the AKS and IOAs have been paced out over the course of the unit. At the top of the pacing guide, we see the name of the unit, the big ideas for the unit, and the suggested pacing. This unit will focus on numerical reasoning, and the suggested pacing is about 6 weeks. In the next box, we see the first AKS and IOA that will appear in the unit. Unit 1A will begin with AKS 1 and IOA 1A, counting within 120. The left column of the pacing guide will list the progression through concrete, representational, and abstract strategies. The bullets also indicate the learning objectives for the day, as well as suggested manipulatives. The right column of the pacing guide shows the instructional resources that align to the intended learning objectives for each day of instruction. Some days you will see instructional resources linked for the numeracy components of a traditional teacher-led lesson. Other days, like this day, for example, you may notice a task-based lesson, which is the focus of your full numeracy block that day. For IOA 1A, we are suggesting about 7 days of instruction. You will begin at the concrete level using manipulatives like counters and snap cubes to count objects, to count on from a given number, and to write a numeral to represent the total. Instruction will progress to representational strategies, where students will organize objects into groups to count more efficiently. They will fill in missing numbers on a hundreds chart and a number line. Finally, students will progress to the abstract level and complete the missing numbers in a count sequence. Over the course of these 7 days of instruction, notice that the activating strategy has been strategically planned and placed to provide teachers with an opportunity to introduce different counting and number sense routines. So each day, you guys, you see you have a different slide to do. These routines can continue to be used as needed throughout the year. So you have a different activating strategy routine to do each day. Very intentional planning. Next on the pacing guide, instruction will shift to IOA 1B, where we explain that the 2 digits of a 2-digit number represent the amount of tens and ones. We suggest about 15 days for this IOA. You will notice that the instructional strategies progress from concrete to concrete representational, and then back to concrete again. This was done because this portion of the pacing guide emphasizes number types. Students will begin to develop their understanding of 2-digit numbers with teen numbers. Students will use a groupable manipulative like snap cubes, the rec and record counters with 10 frames. Students need to understand that a bundle of 10 ones is called a 10, and a teen number is represented by a 10 and some more ones. Students need multiple opportunities to use groupable manipulatives and then to make the connection between the groupable manipulatives and the representational drawings with place value charts. After we do some work with teen numbers, then we're going to go back to our concrete models with groupable manipulatives again, and we're going to work with decade numbers. Students will use place value charts. They will label the places with their values. They should be able to explain that a decade number such as 30 is composed of 3 groups of 10 and 0 ones. So we have a concrete day, again with that groupable manipulative, then a representational day. Next, students are going to go back to that groupable manipulative again, and they're going to model any 2-digit number along with they're using that place value chart. Students will explain that each digit of a 2-digit number represents tens and ones. After a couple of days of using groupable manipulatives such as snap cubes, you are going to have the opportunity to make the connection between snap cubes and base 10 blocks. This is the first time in the unit that students will be using base 10 blocks. So you're going to make that connection, and then our instruction is going to shift to using base 10 blocks, and we are going to begin modeling numbers in various ways with those base 10 blocks with tens and ones. You can see an example of this would be 32 could be modeled as 3 tens and 2 ones. It could be modeled as 2 tens and 12 ones, or 1 10 and 22 ones. Again, students are using their base 10 blocks alongside a place value chart. We are going to do that at the concrete rep, and then representational, until finally we get to that abstract level where students will recognize and express 2-digit numbers in multiple ways, but they're going to be able to explain the values of the places and words. You can see on this day that students will have the opportunity to engage in task-based learning for the entirety of the math block. All right, you guys, for the final portion of Unit 1A, instruction will focus on IOA 1C, comparing and ordering whole numbers up to 100 using concrete models, drawings, words, and the greater than, equal to, or less than symbols. You can see that IOA 1B is listed in this section of the pacing guide as well, because students are using their understanding of place value and two-digit numbers to do this thinking. We are suggesting about 6 days for this work. On the pacing guide, you will notice that there is only 1 day of concrete instruction, and the following day we shift to concrete rep, and then the remaining days are only representational strategies. This decision was made because students have already spent a lot of time building two-digit numbers with concrete manipulatives and have already begun to draw them for representational within the work you did for IOA 1B. So we did not feel like we needed to spend as much time concretely in this section, but teachers, please continue to scaffold instruction with manipulatives for your students as needed. So finally, our abstract day, we're going to do a little bit of that comparing maybe, or thinking about how numbers could be represented in different ways to compare or order. And that will bring us to our final day of the unit, where you will be able to take the Unit 1A assessment. In this portion of the video, we will highlight specific instructional strategies that will be utilized in this unit. Please refer to the Analyzing the Standards, or ATS, for guidance on additional instructional strategies for each IOA. We are going to begin by looking at instructional strategies that will be used for IOA 1B. For this IOA, students will need to explain that the two digits in a two-digit number represent the amount of tens and ones. This will be the first time that students unitize or make a bundle of 10 ones called a 10. Students will begin by working with team numbers. One way we can see this is by using counters and a 10 frame. I have some counters that I want to count. One way I could count my counters is to count them one by one. Another way I could count is to make a bundle of 10. Making a bundle of 10 is a more efficient way to count sets of objects. I'm going to use my 10 frame to help me make a bundle of 10. So I'm going to fill in my 10 frame. I know a 10 frame would be 10. So let's see, can I fill in a 10 frame? So I was able to bundle a group of 10 ones to make one 10. So I'm going to write that on my paper. When I bundled a group of 10 ones, that now is 1 10. I see that I do not have enough counters to make another group of 10. So let's see how many ones I have left over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ones. So I have 1 10 and 5 ones, but how many counters does that mean I really have? So I'm going to count. When I start counting, I'm going to start at the number 10 because I know that this 10 frame full of counters represents 10. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15 total counters. 15 is what we call a two-digit number because there are two digits, one digit, two digits, and the number 15, 1 and 5. Each one of these digits has a value because it is in a certain place in the number. The 1 has a value of 10 because there are 10 counters bundled together as 1 10. The 5 has a value of 5 ones to show the 5 ones remaining. That makes the number 15. 1 10 and 5 ones is 15. After using groupable manipulatives to model teen numbers, students will progress to decade numbers. Students need to describe decade numbers as blank 10s and 0 ones. One way we can do this is by using snap cubes and a place value chart. It might sound something like this. I have these snap cubes that I want to count, and I know all of the work I've been doing that it is more efficient if I make bundles of 10. So I'm going to group all of my snap cubes into bundles of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's one bundle of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I see that I have 2 bundles of 10. I'm going to put this on my place value chart and help me think about it just a little bit. I see that I have 2 bundles of 10, 2 10s. Let's see if I can slide this up just a little bit so you guys can see. I have 2 10s. And I do not have any leftover snap cubes, so I have 0 ones. So what number does this represent? Well, let me see. If I count, I'm going to start with counting my 10s, and I'm going to count by 10s because each of these is a bundle of 10. So 10, 20, I have 20, and I do not have any ones. So the value of 2 10s is 20. 2 10s and 0 ones is the same thing as the number 20. After working with decade numbers, students will progress to any 2-digit number. Students should continue to use groupable manipulatives like snap cubes at first, but teachers should eventually make the connection between snap cubes and base 10 blocks. Here is an example of what that could look and sound like. Okay, boys and girls, today we've been asked to show the number 23. When I write 23, I know that it has 2 10s and 3 ones. I have my snap cubes, and I'm going to build the number 23 with my snap cubes. So I know I need to build 2 10s. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, there's 1 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 10s. These are 2 10s. And then I know I need to show 3 ones. So 2 10s is made up, 23 is made up of 2 10s and 3 ones. 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now, I know that snapping all these snap cubes together to make my 10s isn't the most efficient way to build the number 23 or to model the number 23. We have another manipulative that we can use called a base 10 block. So let me slide this over to the side and show you a little bit about a base 10 block. This is a base 10 block. A base 10 block, when we're looking at that, we can see that the 10 ones have already been stuck together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They have already been composed together to make a 10. So if you look at that side by side, I can see that that is the same. This 10s rod is the same as 10 ones. So just like with our snap cubes, we took our 10 individual cubes and snapped them together to make a 10. With base 10 blocks, the 10 ones have already been snapped together. So this is a 10, and these are my ones. So again, if I was asked to make the number 23, just like I did with my snap cubes, I could use my base 10 blocks and it would be a little more efficient. Let's see what that looks like. I know the number 23, just like with my snap cubes, is made of 2 10s and 3 1s, 23. So to show that, I would have 2 10s, 10, 20, and 3 1s, 1, 2, 3. So you can kind of see how the snap cubes look like the base 10 blocks. This 10 is 10 ones, and this 10 is 10 ones. They've just already been snapped together for me. So the value of 23, 20 is made up of 2 10s and 3 1s. Or I can use base 10 blocks and show 2 10s and 3 1s. The final portion of IOA 1B requires students to model various ways to make a number with 10s and 1s. Let's continue to look at what this could look like with the number 23. Using my place value chart and my base 10 blocks, I'm going to model the number 23. I know that I can model the number 23 with 2 10s and 3 1s. I know that this shows 2 10s and 3 1s. 2 10s has a value of 10, 20. And 3 1s has a value of 3. So I can see that the base 10 blocks that I showed has a value of 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. Is there another way that I can show 23 using my base 10 blocks? Well, I know that the value of a 10 rod is the same as 10 ones. So I'm thinking maybe I could trade one of these 10 rods in for 10 ones. So if I were to do that, I would have 1 10. I'm going to slide this up, you guys, so you can see 1 10. And instead of that 10 rod, I'm going to put 10 ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's get that to fit just a little bit better. 10 ones. And then I still need the 3 1s. So let's see, does that equal 23? Well, I can see that I have 1 10, which has a value of 10, And in the ones column, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 ones, which has a value of 13. So is this another way to represent 23? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yes, 1, 10, and 13 ones is another way that we can represent 23. We can compose ones to make tens, or we can decompose tens and trade them in for 10 ones. And we can do this different ways to show our number in more than one way. Today, we've talked about different strategies. We've also talked about using concrete, representational, and abstract strategies in the previous video. So, which strategy should we emphasize? In mathematics, the emphasis is on reasoning and thinking about quantities within mathematical context. Specific mathematics strategies for teaching and learning are not mandated by the Georgia Department of Education or assessed on state or federally mandated tests. Students may solve problems in different ways and have the flexibility to choose a mathematical strategy that allows them to make sense of and strategically solve problems using efficient methods that are most comfortable and make sense to them. It is critical that teachers and parents remain partners to help each child grow to become a mathematically literate citizen. These standards persevere and affirm local control and flexibility. Thank you for watching our video today.